Welcome, gamers! Oh, I decided to stretch when I said that. Alright, I am MonriaTitans, the host of the Weekend Game Show, where I educate on and discuss different aspects of game development to show why video games can take years to make to prevent another Cyberpunk 2077 launch scenario. And one of the ways I do this is with the Let's Read Some Shit videos, where I read aloud portions, emphasis on portions, for DMCA and copyright reasons of a couple of books regarding video games, their creation, their impact on the world, to show the legitimacy of video games as an artistic medium, and or whatever I feel like reading at the time. In addition, I also hope to promote literacy as a whole. I also provide artist shoutouts to human artists to combat AI art theft. All of them can be seen on the Become Empowered Instagram, all one word, one E in the middle. All rights reserved by the artists, of course. Hashtag create don't scrape. If this is something you're interested in, then you can find the other videos on my YouTube channel under the handle MonriaTitans. MONRIA. Okay. And also on Buy Me a Coffee, where educational quotes regarding video games and literacy are shared. Well, are also shared. If you tip through Buy Me a Coffee, 15% of proceeds minimum go to Kids Need to Read, whose mission is to help children discover the joy of reading and the power of a literate mind. Alright, so these tend to go about an hour-ish. Can be longer, but they go as follows. Read the summary of the back of the book, if applicable. We really need to get back into the habit of doing that. Read the foreword and preface, if applicable. And if there is no introduction, then I will read part of the first chapter. Today I will be reading portions of Fantasy Map Maker, How to Draw RPG Cities for Gamers and Fans, and Book 2, Language Myths. 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 There we go. For educational purposes. But again, I'll only be reading portions for DMCA and copyright reasons. Now, I'm always going to reiterate that. Don't need takedowns and whatnot. Alright, so Fantasy Mapmaker by Jared Blando. Create maps that bring wondrous worlds to life. 75 plus step-by-step demonstrations guide your way. This is also on my never-ending reading list. Anyway, while everyday maps get us from here to there, fantasy maps transport us to places beyond our wildest imaginings. It's no coincidence that some of the genre's most immersive titles, from novels to role-playing games, feature compelling map elements that lend credence to the imaginative worlds they portray. In Fantasy Map Maker, professional gaming illustrator Jared Blando offers easy-to-follow directions for creating your own local maps in a fun, engaging fantasy style. Inside, you'll find strategies for mapping various types of settlements, from humble hamlets and smaller towns to bustling cities and castles. How to draw bird's eye views of structures ranging from modest cottages and bustling harbors to grand temples, sacred groves, and fantastical airship platforms. How to portray man-made elements such as roads, windmills, and fountains, as well as natural features like mountains, rivers, and forests. Lost my spot for a second. Right, secrets to adding polish and personality to your map with title boxes, compasses, legends, coats of arms, and other finishing touches. Tons of step-by-step instruction, including 3 complete start-to-finish map-making demonstrations. Above and beyond the basic hows of drawing, this book shows you how to lay out your realm thoughtfully, making the most of the narrative power of each and every element. You'll come away with the skills to craft beautifully illustrated maps that look and feel authentic. The kind of maps that launch unforgettable journeys. I really need to read this. That's why it's on my never-ending reading list. Book number 24? Anyway, introduction. Actually, let me go back to the table of contents, tell you what they have. So, book is a bit different to be expected. It is a how-to for art. They have the introduction, basic art supplies, advanced supplies, and then chapter 1. So we'll see how long it takes me to get through the introduction, basic supplies, and advanced supplies, and then we'll see if I read chapter 1. Excuse me, I hope y'all didn't hear that. I was expecting that to be a hiccup. Alright, introduction. Villages and cities hold a special place in both our cultural history and our collective imaginations. They are the heart of our social fabric as humans and thus have been important to kings and common men alike throughout the ages. Many of our greatest myths and legends revolve around them, such as Troy, Camelot, and even Rome. These places, whether fictional or real, have dominated human culture and sparked the imagination and wonder of ancient as well as modern peoples. Cities have always served as bastions of wealth, knowledge, and power, and many of our cities have withstood the test of time even to this day. The need to formulate our own myths, legends, and stories is as strong now as it was when the first human lifted a brush to make their mark on a cavern wall. Storytelling is the beating heart of humanity, and our history is filled with the fabled realms, great heroes, and those ancient cities that inspire who we are, both in the past and for our future. Join me now and forge a settlement of your very own. And on the next page, the introduction is built very creatively into a map, the city of Tyrul. Alright, basic supplies. Right, before you dive into drawing your settlements and cities, it's best to have the right tools of the trade with you. Drawing implements. Having a few different types of pencils is best, namely a 2H, an HB, and a 2B, as well as a kneaded eraser and a pencil sharpener. When I work, I also use 2 mechanical pencils with .05 lead for detail work. Why 2? One has HB lead, which is lighter and sharper. The other has 2B lead, which is richer and softer. Basic inks and pens. Along with pencils, you may want to pick up some inking tools. Inks are used to solidify your work after you have finished your pencil roughs. Inking tools come in a variety of forms and will be discussed in more detail later. For now, we will stick with the technical pen variety. Oops. Okay. Phew. For now, we will stick with the technical pen variety, which are simple to use and straightforward. It is best to have 3 pen types. Use a pen with a nib or tip of .01 for detail work. A pen with a nib of .1 is best for more general work. And a pen with a .5 nib works great for thick lines and emphasis work. I recommend micron pens or Copic multi-liners. in either black or brown. And they actually have photos. Archival and waterproof inks. When purchasing ink pens, make sure they are waterproof and archival. Archival inks are not acidic and will not fade with time. Ooh. And non-archival ink is generally more acidic and may cause the page to yellow over time. Waterproof inks will not run if splashed with water and are quite durable and bold. Drawing surfaces. After you have picked up your pencils, it's time to think about what surface you will be drawing on. The paper your map is on is just as important as what you are rendering it with. Oh, okay, that picked up well. Drawing pads come in many sizes and weights. Ultimately, the paper you choose will depend on your personal preference, though ideally you'll want something with enough room to draw and not feel too cramped. Watercolor paper and parchment paper are both excellent for map making. I use Arches watercolor paper for map making because it's durable and holds pencil and ink very well. Paper weight and press rating. Papers are rated as having a poundage level such as 65-LB. What is that? 65 a pound? This is a new area for me. Or 176 GSM, 90 a pound, or 243 GSM, and so on. Essentially, this refers to how stiff and thick they are. The higher the poundage, the stiffer the paper. For map making, it's best to have a paper that is rated at 65, I don't know, a pound or 176 GSM or higher. This will give you a solid base to work on. Watercolor papers also have a press rating, either hot or cold. Cold paper press is rougher and has more tooth or texture. Hot press paper is smoother and has less tooth to it. A note on pencils. Drawing pencils range from 9H, lightest line color and most clay, to 9B, darkest and richest color, containing more graphite. For our purposes, a 2H pencil produces a light line and works well for light sketching and delicate shading. Oh, why am I yawning so much? Because I rearranged the living room. An HB pencil is very much in the middle of the pencil spectrum, making it quite useful for drawing mountains and hills. A 2B pencil is excellent for darkening up boundaries and giving lighter pencil strokes a heavier line weight. A mechanical pencil is a bit advanced, but it also gives an excellent range of line weight and density with some practice. Outfit. Advanced supplies. When you are ready to move on from pencil and simple line work, there are some tools that you will want to get your hands on. For traditional work, a variety of brushes are essential for painting and detail work, while inking requires specific inks or ink pens. When working digitally, you will need a tablet, stylus, and Adobe Photoshop or GIMP or Clip Studio Paint. Traditional brushes. Brushes come in a bewildering variety of shapes and sizes, but you will need only a select few to get started. Just like pencils, most brushes have ratings. They range from number 00, the smallest, to number 10, the largest, and are rated by their shapes. Most commonly round, square, and flat. Brushes also fall into 3 different media groups: water, acrylic, and oil. They can also be grouped by their respective bristle makeup: synthetic, natural, or mixed. For map making, it's best to use watercolor brushes in a mixture of flats and rounds. This will be discussed in more detail in the advanced chapters. Drawing inks. You have already been introduced to the simple line pens, but inking can be applied in a variety of ways beyond just line work. Inks can be painted in with a brush in a bold fashion or as lighter washes for a more subtle effect and tonality. Inks come in a baffling variety of colors, though it's best to stick with black. Oh, next one, okay. Though it's best to stick with black, brown, and red inks to start. You will need a small selection of brushes for your ink work, including numbers 000 and 1 rounds, a number 2 flat, and a large 1-inch 25mm flat watercolor brush. Calligraphy pens with interchangeable nibs and Copic multiliner ink pens in brown or black are useful, and each come in a variety of sets. Inking and its various tools are covered in more detail in the advanced chapters. I personally use Noodlers or Higgins inks, both of which are waterproof once dried. Higgins inks are more vibrant and tend to be bolder, while Noodlers are more expensive and subtler. Digital tools. When working digitally, you will need a tablet and a stylus. A stylus pen tool that has built-in pressure sensitivity to help simulate light or heavy strokes, depending on how hard or soft you press. There are several tablets that are cheap and easy to get at your local electronics store online. Personally, I use a Wacom Intuos 4 tablet. I use an XP Pen tablet, number 13, I think. Don't quote me on that, but the XP Pen tablet I do use. With multiple interchangeable nibs to simulate different surfaces, it's a great tool for working digitally. As for software, Adobe Photoshop and GIMP, a freeware program very similar to Photoshop. Ooh, I'm going to look into GIMP, but I use Clip Studio Paint and Canva and IBIS Paint. I haven't looked at it. Yeah, IBIS Paint X. That's on my iPad. But I'm going to look into GIMP though. All right, and GIMP are both excellent and function similarly. For detailed instructions on digital illustrative techniques, you can visit Impact Books. Oh, it's a website. You can visit impactbooks.com/tutorials-fantasy-map maker. Tip: to get that nice old parchment look, try soaking your paper in dark roast coffee or black tea bags. You can either lay the paper in a large pan or dampen the papers and then brush the tea or coffee onto it with a folded piece of paper towel. It will yellow your paper in an excellent fashion. And the town of Longsaddle. Longsaddle? Alright, Chapter 1 Cities and Settlements. Towns and cities are the heart of the civilized world. Indeed, their formation and founding are considered the first step on the long road of civilization itself. Like anything else, settlements are governed by the basic principle and necessity, and people need resources to survive. Historically, settlements were founded near fresh water, such as rivers on the coast, or both. Fresh drinking water was essential, and the sea provided an abundant food supply. Agriculture came next, and as mankind learned how to raise crops, fertile farms sprang up, providing storable food. In turn, walls were raised to protect the settlement from attack. Once hunger and defense were addressed, settlements could focus on other less immediate and more luxurious things, be it learning, artisanal goods, or even excess foodstuffs. Trade began with the movement of goods between peoples. Prosperity and technology spread along these newly built roads and routes. This was but mankind's first few steps into the future from very humble beginnings. I have classified settlements into four basic categories: hamlet, town, city, and castle. This chapter will show you a typical example of each and give you some background on them so you can get an idea of which you would like to delve into. Now let's lay the foundations of your very own settlement. The hamlet. Hmm. Actually, since there was no forward or preface, and I got through the basic and advanced supplies quite quickly, and chapter 1 is short, I will be able to get through chapter 1. I'll finish chapter 1 and stop there. Alright, the hamlet. The smallest of the settlements we will explore in this book is the humble hamlet. Hamlets are the first step in the settlement hierarchy. They use small, relatively isolated, or centered near some sort of resource. Or they are usually small. For our purposes, hamlets are the small farming, hunting, mining, and fishing settlements that populate both historical and fantasy worlds. They are the most numerous of settlements and, unfortunately, tend to bear much of the strife that is inherent in a medieval world via marauding raiders and plagues. Ugh, poor things. Oh, this map is so cute! Sorry. Generally, a hamlet or a village consists of less than 10 to 20 buildings and usually has less than 200 inhabitants. They are often unprotected by fortifications unless they're on a frontier or in a notoriously dangerous spot. As you can see, the hamlet of Wending Wood below has access to fresh flowing water. All of its small hovels are clustered around or near the Sleeping Dragon Inn, an important building in any settlement. Oh, this is so cute and well done. Hamlets are great places to start practicing your settlement creation skills. Once you get the basics down, you can move on to larger towns and cities. Don't worry, I, Barnabas Bibkins, and some of my friends will guide you through the process. Alright, the town. Towns are the meat and potatoes of a civilization and often serve as the backdrop to the start of a good adventure. While not as numerous as hamlets, towns are larger and more affluent. They house more people, goods, and services than hamlets. Historically, towns grew when there was an influx of trade, food production, or both. They often became trade hubs or stops between larger cities. Key to many towns were the inns or taverns that would spring up to accommodate these travelers and merchantmen. With trade in goods comes taxes, and thus towns could contribute to a culture's prosperity and well being. These clusters of civilization are usually large enough to protect themselves, either with a citizen militia or fortifications. Thus, they are usually strategic assets to a ruler. The town of Heldon above has access to fresh water via wells. It contains a few specific buildings that sell luxury goods, a large inn for travelers, and, of course, a thriving market square where goods are bartered and sold. Notably, its buildings are topped in wood or slate shingles as opposed to more modest thatch. Thick pages tricked me. Thought it was 2 pages stuck together. Ooh. See, this is how you should make cities. It's all nice and easy to travel through. Moving on, the city. Let me get rid of this notification on my computer real quick. All right. A city is the largest of the urban settlements and home to many thousands of people. Cities are centers of trade, industry, and culture, often holding social and strategic as well as monetary significance to the kingdoms they belong to. As hubs of trade and commerce, cities are almost always protected by standing garrisons and fortifications. They generally serve as encampment points for feudal armies during wartime. Many cities are built around one of a kingdom's most prized assets, such as a harbor, which serves as a trade link to other nations or cities. It is also an abundant source of food for hungry inhabitants. Cities also house other important structures such as universities, cathedrals, and the palatial residences of the ruling aristocracy. Of course, all that influence is often accompanied by extreme poverty. The city's layout will often be split into sections of the rich, the merchant class, and the poor. Above is the city of Trusselburg. It is made up of hundreds of buildings, multiple town squares, a port, fortifications, and several winding roads. Its buildings go from very fine to the packed urban sprawl, which is caked in and around the walls. There is a massive fountain and statue in the central plaza. Oh, there is. Just noticed that. A tribute to a great hero or one of the deities the inhabitants worship. And then we have the castle. As population centers grow, the need to protect the land and people grew as well. Oh, I read as population centers grew. Castles and fortresses made of earth, timber, and later stone were military centers where a ruler could formulate the defense of his kingdom. While they served some of the functions of hamlets, towns, and cities, and could grow quite large in their own right, castles were much more compact and designed to house a protected body of men within. Most castles were not massive, multi walled structures, and many were quite small relative to the power they projected. Castles helped protect the lands from enemy attacks. Sieges were quite common in the medieval period, and evidence of this in the sheer number of castles and fortifications, not just in European culture, but in many others as well. Below is the castle of Krakenhof. This compact but heavily defended castle revolves around a keep. It is protected by thick walls and ringed by a moat of brackish water. I love that word, brackish. It contains some essential structures within, such as a blacksmith, a barracks, a stable, and a yard. However, it really serves as a place of protection for the serfs and peasants of the surrounding countryside. Castles are impressive but easy to draw. They do take some thinking and planning, something I'm not too good at. Humans are always building things, so I can't eat them. Phooey. Ha! It's a little troll in the bottom right corner. Alright, so that is a fantasy map maker. How to draw RPG cities for gamers and fans. There will be links to this and actually both books in the description. Alright, onward to Language Myths. And summary on the back. This illuminating and highly readable collection of essays explores some of the myths. For example, standards of children's speech and writing have declined. Women talk too much. The purity of the English language is under threat. Some languages are more attractive to the ear or are harder to learn than others. The media has a detrimental effect on language. These widely held views are questioned and shown to be based on inadequate or false information or simply not to be true. Other essays explore spelling problems, attitudes towards accents, controversies over changes in language, and the belief that some languages have no grammar. Written by a team of leading linguists, Language Myths contains many valuable insights and provides a fascinating introduction into the way language works. And I would get into the list of contributors, but this is a used book. There is a giant sticker that says used on it that I can't get off. So, sorry. Language Myths, edited by Laurie Bauer and Peter Trudgill. Essential reading for anyone concerned with the nature of language. Contents. So there's a note on the contributors, introduction. I'll read both. A note on the contributor. Oh! So okay, that's even better. All the names on the back of the book are right here. Sweet. So you're going to know them anyway. Yay! Again, I haven't read this yet. This one is also on my never-ending reading list. I'll just say I didn't read it, not entirely accurate. I was introduced to this book in college, but anyone who's ever been given a book to read as part of an assignment knows if you even read it, you probably won't remember what you read because you didn't have a choice in the matter. So that was one of these books, and I regret it. I regret it a lot. So I got me some hot cocoa, but I left my water in the kitchen. Oh well. Jean Aitchison is the Rupert Murdoch Professor of Language and Communication at the University of Oxford. In her research, she is concerned with the mental lexicon, language change, and the language of the media. She is the author of several books, including Language Change, Progress or Decay. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 2nd edition, 1991. Words in the Mind, An Introduction to the Mental Lexicon. Oxford Blackwell, 2nd edition, 1994. The Language Web, The Power and Problem of Words. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1997. John L. Geo, I hope I'm saying these right, is Professor Emeritus of English at the University of Georgia. He is co-author of Origins and Development of the English Language, Fort Worth, Harcourt, Brace, Jovanovich, 4th edition, 1993, and author of 50 Years Among the New Worlds, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1991. Editor of Volume 6 of the Cambridge History of the English Language, on English in North America. He is past president of the American Dialect Society and of the Dictionary Society of North America. For 10 years, he was editor of American Speech, the journal of the American Dialect Society, and for 10 years with his wife Adele, wrote the quarterly column Among the New Worlds for that same journal. Nice. Lars Gunnar Andersson, professor of modern Swedish at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, received his PhD in linguistics in 1975 from the University of Gothenburg, where he also conducted his undergraduate studies. He has lectured at several universities and attended conferences in Europe, the USA, and Southern Africa. He has done most of his linguistic work in syntax, semantics, typology, and sociolinguistics. He has co-written 2 books on the local dialect of Gothenburg and is also co-author with 2 others of Logic in Linguistics, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1977. Together with Peter Trudgill, he has written Bad Language, Hardmansworth Penguin, 1990, and together with Tor Jansen, Languages in Botswana, Gaborone, Longman, Botswana, 1997. He is also a columnist on a daily newspaper in Gothenburg. Why are these things written in so small a font? That will be my only gripe. So small a font. That will be my only gripe. Moving on. Laurie Bauer. Excuse me. Laurie Bauer is Reader in Linguistics at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. I always wanted to go to New Zealand. A graduate of the University of Edinburgh, he is the author of many books and articles on word formation, international varieties of English, and most recently, language change in current English. His books include English Word Formation, Cambridge University Press, 1983, Introducing Linguistic Morphology, Edinburgh University Press, 1988, and Watching English Change, London and New York, Longman, 1994. Winifred Bauer is a New Zealander who for over 20 years has devoted her research to the Maori language, and she has a number of publications in that field, including Maori, London and New York, Routledge, 1993, Routledge, 1993, and the Reed Reference Grammar of Maori, Auckland Reed, 1997. She has taught at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand, the University of Newcastle upon Tyne in England, and Odense University in Denmark. Odense. She is an honorary research fellow at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. Edward Carney read English at University College London. He spent most of the 1950s in Sweden teaching in the Department of English at the University of Lund. In the early 1960s, he joined the newly established Department of Linguistics in the University of Manchester, where he eventually became senior lecturer in phonetics. At present, he is a senior research fellow in the department. He is an honorary fellow of the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. J.K. Chambers is professor in the Department of Linguistics at the University of Toronto. As a child, he braved the howling winds on the tundra to reach the warmth of the pot-bellied stove, and teacher in the one-room schoolhouse in Stony Creek. He has written extensively about Canadian English, beginning with Canadian Raising in 1973, and including Canadian English Origins and Structures, Toronto. Methuen? 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 1975. The first book on the topic. More general research includes studies of dialect acquisition, dialect topography, and linguistic variation. He is co-author with Peter Trudgill of Dialectology, Cambridge University Press, 2nd edition, 1997, and author of Sociolinguistic Theory, Language Variation and Its Social Significance, Oxford and New York, Blackwell, 1995. I was 4. Jenny Cheshire is Professor of Linguistics at Queen Mary and Westfield College, University of London. She has researched and published on language variation and change, modern English syntax, and different aspects of language in society. Recent editions include English Around the World, Sociolinguistic Perspectives, Cambridge University Press, 1991. And with Dieter Stein, Taming the Vernacular, From Dialect to Written Standard Language, London and New York, Longman, 1997. She is currently writing a book on the syntax of spoken English and co-directing with Paul Kurzweil a research project on dialect leveling in 3 English cities. And for anyone wondering why I'm reading about all these people, or you just, everybody has memory issues in some degree. This is the beginning before the introduction and note on the contributors. So these are all the people who contributed to language myths. Moving on. John E. Essling is Associate Professor of Linguistics at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. He is Secretary of the International Phonetic Association. I am not reading out that website. And his it's long, and his research is on the auditory categorization of voice quality and on the phonetic production of laryngeal and pharyngeal speech sounds. I'm going to spell those words. Laryngeal and Pharyngeal. Why did it miss the first letter? P. Speech patterns. He is the author of the University of Victoria Phonetic Database on CD-ROM. Be right back. My lovely honey did not go to the gym today. Back, obviously. All right. John H. Essling is Associate Professor of Linguistics at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. He is Secretary of the... I read all that already. All right. He is the author of the University of Victoria Phonetic Database on CD-ROM and has participated in the development of several phonetics teaching and speech analysis of software programs. How old is this book? Nicholas Evans is Reader in Linguistics in the Department of Linguistics and Applied Linguistics at the University of Melbourne. Since 1980, he has worked extensively on a range of Aboriginal languages spoken in Queensland and the Northern Territory, publishing numerous articles. A grammar and dictionary of Kayardild, yeah, Kayardild. Why does it keep missing the first letter? K. And with Patrick McConville, editing a book on linguistics and prehistory in Australia. At present, he is writing a grammar of Mayali, Mayali, In a book on polysemy, Poly, polysemy, there we go, multiple meaning, and meaning change in Australian languages. Howard Giles, PhD, DSc, University of Bristol, is professor and chair of communication at the University of California, Santa Barbara, where he also holds affiliated professional positions in psychology and in linguistics. He is founding editor of both the Journal of Language and Social Psychology and the Journal of Asian Pacific Communication. Currently, he is president-elect of the International Communication Association and International Association for Language and Social Psychology. He No. His interdisciplinary research interests span the following areas of language and intergroup communication: language attitudes, ethnolinguistics, speech accommodation, intergenerational communication across cultures, and police citizen interactions. Ooh. Roy, Roy, Ray Harlow trained initially as a classicist in New Zealand and Switzerland, turning to Polynesian linguistics some 20 years ago. He is now Associate Professor in Linguistics at the University of Waikato, Hamilton, New Zealand. From its establishment by Parliament in 1987 until 1993, he was a member of the Te Tari Wiri I Te Reo Mori? Wow. The Maori Language Commission. Recent publications and writings that relate to the topic of his contribution to this volume include Lexical Expansion in Maori in Journal of the Polynesian Society, 102.1, 1993, page 97 to 107, A Science and Maths Terminology for Maori. Is it Maori or Mori? In same papers, Hamilton, New Zealand, University of Waikato, 1993, page 124 to 137, and a commissioned report to the Maori Language Commission on a comparison of the status of the Maori in New Zealand and Romansh in Switzerland, 1994. Romansh. Romansh. In Switzerland, 1994. Janet Holmes holds a personal chair in linguistics at Victoria University of Wellington, where she teaches linguistics and sociolinguistics courses. Her publications include a textbook, An Introduction to Sociolinguistics, London and New York, Longman 1992, and the first book of sociolinguistic and pragmatic articles on New Zealand English, New Zealand Ways of Speaking English, Clevedon and Philadelphia, Multilingual Matters, 1990. Co-edited with Alan Bell. She has published on a range of topics, including New Zealand English, language and gender, sexist language, pragmatic particles and hedges, compliments and apologies. Her most recent book is Women, Men, and Politeness. I really want to read that. London and New York, Longman, 1995. This book is really old. Anthony Lodge was formerly a professor of French at the University of Newcastle upon Tyne. And is now professor of French language and linguistics at the University of St. Andrews. He has a strong interest in French language teaching, but his work has focused primarily on the history of the French language, culminating in French from Dialect to Standard. London and New York, Routledge, 1993. A general overview of the relationship between language and society in France since Roman times. He has recently co-authored a general introduction to the linguistics analysis of French in Exploring the French Language. London, Arnold, 1997. He is joint editor of the Journal of French Language Studies, published by Cambridge University Press. Adjusting my glasses. Alright, so how many people next? We're on James Milroy, so he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 7, 8 more. I don't know why I looked at the back of the book like I couldn't turn the pages. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Who was I on? James Milroy. Is Emeritus Professor of Linguistics at the University of Sheffield and now teaches at the University of Michigan. His publications include The Language of Gerard Manley Hopkins, London André Deutsch, 1977. Regional Accents of English, Belfast, Blackstaff, 1981. Linguistic Variation and Change, Oxford and Cambridge, M.A. Blackwell, 1992. And with Leslie Milroy, Authority in Language, London, Routledge, 1985, second edition, 1991. He has also written a large number of papers on sociolinguistics, historical linguistics, Middle English, and Old Norse. Ooh. He has recently been involved in collaborative work based in Newcastle and phonological variation and change in present-day English and is preparing a manuscript for Longman on social dialectology and language change. Leslie Milroy has published on a wide range of topics within the general field of linguistics, including socially significant patterns of variation and change in urban dialects, processes of language standardization, bilingualism, and the controversial abilities of aphasic speakers. Since 1994, she has held a professorship in linguistics at the University of Michigan. She lived and worked in Belfast since 1968 and 1982, and after a year as a research fellow at the university, she moved to the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, where she remained until 1994. She has investigated the urban dialects of both Newcastle and Belfast and has published several books and a large number of articles on these academic interests. Michael Montgomery is professor of English and linguistics at the University of South Carolina, where he specializes in the history of American English and in dialects of the American South. He is editing a dictionary of Appalachian English and is writing a book on linguistic connections between Scotland and Ireland and the American South. I want to read that. Nancy Niedzelski? Niedzzielski. Obtained her PhD in linguistics from the University of California, Santa Barbara. She is an avowed interdisciplinarian working and published across areas involving Creole languages and identity, sociophonetics, speech accommodation, and language variation. Currently, she is co-authoring a volume with Dennis Preston on folk linguistics and working in the private sector. Dennis R. Preston is professor of linguistics at Michigan State University in East Lansing. He is an old dialectologist who has been transformed into a sociolinguist. My bad. He is interested in the perception of language and language varieties by non-linguists and in attitudes towards varieties which are prejudiced against. Ooh. Most recently, he has been caught up in studying the facts of and attitudes towards massive ongoing vowel rotations in United States English. In addition, he has been intrigued by the parallels between sociolinguistic variation and the learning of second languages, suspecting that they may inform one another in ways not yet fully understood. Like any academic, he teaches, publishes books and papers, and hangs around with his cronies at conferences where he presents research findings from time to time. Peter Roach graduated from Oxford University in psychology and philosophy and did postgraduate courses in TEFL, Manchester, and phonetics, UCL, before completing his PhD at Reading University. He was lecturer in phonetics at Reading University from 1968 to 1978, then moved to the University of Leeds, where he was senior lecturer in phonetics from 1978 to 1991. After moving to the Department of Psychology there in 1991, he was made professor of cognitive psychology. He moved back to Reading in 1994 to become professor of phonetics and director of the Speech Research Laboratory. He is currently head of the Department of Linguistic Science there. I didn't understand a single thing I just read. Where is he currently? Never mind. He has held many research grants for work in speech science, has published many research papers based on his work, and is also author of English Phonetic and Phonology. Cambridge University Press, 2nd edition, 1991, and Introducing Phonetics, London, Penguin, 1992. He was the principal editor of the 15th edition of the Daniel Jones English Pronouncing Dictionary, Cambridge University Press, 1997. He is vice president of the International Phonetic Association. Peter Trudgill is professor of English Language and Linguistics at the University of Lausanne, Lausanne. He was born in Norwich, England, and taught at the universities of Reading and Essex before moving to Switzerland. He is the author of 3 other Penguin books: Sociolinguistics: An Introduction to Language and Society, 1974, Introducing Language and Society, 1992, and Bad Language, 1990, with Lars Anderson. His other publications include Accent, Dialect, and the School, London, Edward Arnold, 1975, The Dialects of England, Oxford and Cambridge, M.A. Blackwell, 1990, Dialects, London and New York, Routledge, 1994, and Dialects in Contact, Oxford and New York, Blackwell, 1986. Walt Wolfram has pioneered research on a broad range of vernacular dialects in the United States over the past 3 decades, including African American Vernacular English, Appalachian English, Puerto Rican English, Native American English, and Outer Banks English. His research on African American English in the 1960s helped launch a national awareness of the role of vernacular dialects in education and society. In 1992, after 25 years as Director of Research at the Center of Applied Linguistics in Washington, D.C., he became the first William C. Friday Distinguished Professor at North Carolina State, where he directs the North Carolina Language and Life Project. Recent books with Natalie Schillings Estes, ESTES, include Hoy-Toyd on the Outer Banks, The Story of the Ocracoke Brogue. Oh, it was close. Brogue. Chapel Hill, UNC Press, 1997, and American English, Dialects and Variation, Oxford and New York, Blackwell, 1998. Whew! I was going to read the introduction. I have changed my mind. So, That was Language Myths, and the section I just read was a note on the contributors. So, all those people contributed to the book Language Myths. I very much regret, I mentioned this before, I very much regret not, well, remembering. I'm pretty sure I read a good portion of it back in college. I have no recollection of it though. But with that, we move on to closing because we hit the hour. I am tired. All right, so and there are all the things. If we were live, you could do command to Discord to get to the Discord. If I remember, I will put it in the description along with my other links that you see there. The main support for the Let's Read Some Shit videos or the read alouds, depending on where you go to look at it, is the Buy Me a Coffee you see at the bottom, but I have other Ko-fis depending on what it is you lot feel like supporting. Do you want to help me get fundage to Kids Need to Read? 15% of the proceeds go there if you go through Buy Me a Coffee. If you give me a tip at ko-fi.com/MonriaTitans WGS, that's going to go towards, where'd I put it? My Steam wishlist. If you donate to ko-fi.com/artist shoutouts, that's where they go to, the artist shoutouts. I'll be trying to boost them on social media, and by boost, the only way to boost them is to create ads. So I'll be creating ads to get these artists more exposure. And then if you like my artwork, you can go to ko-fi.com/TitansMonriaArt and help me out there. Right now, I'm trying to get the MacBook Pro docking station. And if you're interested in what that is, I should take pictures of it. But I did put a link to it in the goal itself, if you go to that page. But the main support link for this, and it'll be the only one I put in the description, is the Buy Me a Coffee. But my proudest affiliation yet is the bookshop.org, what I like to call the Etsy for small business bookstores. You want to get more books, you want to get away from Amazon, you want to support me and what I do, then you got 3 skips with a stone going to bookshop.com/shop/MonriaTitans. It was so close. Did you see that? Did you see that? Anyway, sorry. Why am I apologizing for being excited? Probably because I get too excited, I'll blow an eardrum. I am clearly tired, so, and now we come to a close. Remember, we are gamers not because we don't have a life, but because we choose to have many, which can also be said of readers. If anyone asks why you like video games, remind them a game is a problem-solving activity approached with a playful attitude. A quote by Jesse Shell. And if anyone gives you shit for your interest, tell them you may not like video games, but what I learned from them is this. No enemies in front of you means you are going the wrong way. Thank you for watching. May every decision you make in the future be in the spirit of fairness, and may the rest of May every decision you make in the future be in the spirit of fairness, and may the rest of your day not go to shit. See you next time.